Hi, my name is Muhammad FAIZZUL, and me and my group members will present about aggregate impact value test. Before that, I would like to introduce my group members. As you can see, the first one is Arthur Davidson Naga, our group leaders, and then Waybyern Liban Anak Briki. Then we have Muhammad Faizul bin Jeffrey, me. The last one is Muhammad Najib Muhammad. So, what is aggregate impact value? It is the ability of aggregate that resists sudden impact or shock load on it. Also, it can be defined as the resistance of aggregate to failure by impact load is known as the impact value of aggregate. The characteristic of any material to resist sudden impact is known as toughness. So, what is the objective for this experiment? It is to determine the aggregate impact value using impact testing machine. So that's all from me. And I will pass the next slide to Muhammad Najib Muhammad. Thank you.
Thank you, Muhammad Faizul. Hi, my name is Muhammad Najib. So I'm going to present about the apparatus. So what we need is impact testing machine. Next is cylinder. Next apparatus we need is tamping rod and also sieve to sieve the aggregates. Also we need the balance to weight the aggregate. Then we also need the laboratory oven. And lastly is the brush. So that's all from me. So next, I would pass to Arthur Davidson. Thank you.
Thank you, Muhammad Najib. So before we start this experiment, we have to dry aggregate in oven for 4 hours and cool the aggregate before we carry out the experiment. So for the first step for this experiment, wet 350 gram of coarse aggregate in a pan by using weighing balance. And then step number 2, we have to arrange the sieve from the biggest size to the smaller size, which is descending order. And then we put the coarse aggregate on the sieve. And then the third step is sieve the aggregate and obtain the portion passing 14 mm and return on 10 mm sieve. Obtain aggregate for 3 sample enough. Okay, here the visual. We sieve the coarse aggregate on siever machine. Next. And then we put the return coarse aggregate on 10 mm. We put in the pan. Next. After that, we measure the weight of the cylindrical measure. Next. After we measure the cylindrical measure, fill the aggregate in the cylindrical measure in 3 layers and tap each layer 25 times with the tapping rod at 50 mm height from the surface of sample. Here the visual. We tap the sample each layer by using tamping rod. And then the surplus aggregates are struck off using the tamping rod as straight edge. And then measure the weight of cylindrical measure content sample of the aggregates by using weight balance. So for the next step, I would like to pass to my group member, which is Waybyern Liban, for the next step. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Arthur. Now I am going to continue on the procedure. As we can see from the visual, the hammer is raised until its lower face is 380 mm above the upper surface of the aggregates in the cup and allowed to fall freely on the aggregates. The test sample is subjected to a total of 15 such blows, each being delivered at an interval of not less than 1 second. Okay, next, we will remove the sample of aggregate from the cylindrical measure and sieve through 2.36 sieve. As we can see from the visual, we are using shaker to sieve. After we are done sieving, we will use brush to remove small particles of aggregates. Then we will measure the weight passing 2.36 mm sieve and retain 2.36 mm sieve. Okay, so the weight of aggregate passing through 2.36 mm sieve is 82 gram. Okay, now this is the data that we have obtained from doing this experiment. So there are three, which is W1, W2, and W3. To get the impact test value, we will need to use the formula given. After we calculate, the final value for impact test value will be 14.79. Okay, so the classification for the aggregate based on the impact test value will be strong. So that is all from our group. Thank you.